Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Madisonville Marine. Bob, you bought a boat from Madisonville Marine, a used boat several years ago. Just recently you took it down there for, a tune-up?
And it's no longer a used boat because it runs like the day I drove it out.
Really?
Yes. Fantastic.
Fantastic. You called me and told me that it's running like it probably never ran before.
So they actually may have cost themselves selling another boat.
Very good. Madisonville Marine, folks. There's no better place to buy a boat. All right. Ryan, the NCAA dropped a iron curtain down April 15th. Everybody, until then, dead period in recruiting now, which is unexpected. People getting their people off the road. How does this play for Tennessee? Well, if you want to expand on what the dead period means, you can. But then also, first question, how does this play for Tennessee compared to other schools? Because I would assume this benefits the bigger schools, which Clemson and Alabama, they don't need as much time. They'll be fine. Tennessee trying to get to that level. How does it impact Tennessee, and just your general thoughts on what they're doing to shut this down?
Yeah, no, so first of all, the dead period, obviously you already had spring visits that had reopened just March 1st, though, because you had a February dead period. So this year being the first year of that, you've actually had less time for schools to get players on campus to this point. Some coaches have kind of wondered out loud, depending on how long this drags out, do you see still an early signing period in December? Because this could impact things so much, taking out so much of the calendar for visits. And it's going to depend on how the NCAA responds in some ways, because you have a month-long dead period in the middle of the summer. Does that get wiped out now, allowing players to take visits throughout the summer to make up for this? Or does the calendar stay the same whenever they resume things as normal? So that's going to dictate a lot. And this official visits also are supposed to open up April 1st for a spring window for players to be able to take official visits. That's now not going to start on time, at least, so that also impacts that. So yeah, it makes it more difficult for players to make decisions early. As for who is impacted most by this, I think, like you said, in general, it's just going to be the programs that don't need the impact of visits as much. The Clemsons and Alabamas and Georgias will benefit from this to some degree, but for the most part, it's going to be about individual players and whether you've had them on your campus, whether they're getting close to being able to make a decision or not. And if you haven't had a guy on campus, it maybe makes it a little harder for you to make up ground on some schools that have already had that player on their campuses. So that's where I think it impacts the most.
Okay. Anybody else? Any thoughts on that?
I was just wondering, can you ramp up your mailings? A lot of schools have big budgets for that. How does it affect this?
So that's important to note. It's a common misconception about dead periods that recruiting stops. It's definitely not stopping during this period, just like it doesn't during most. Phone contacts allowed to continue, social media. So coaches are still doing their jobs. They're still contacting these players, talking with them all the time. It's just you can't have that in-person contact. So there's a lot that can be done. Mailing, social media. You've got to send those graphics that players love to tweet out. Got to send those. Got to stay in contact with guys. And this period's critical. This is going into the time of the year where guys make a lot of decisions. Who maintains contact with players the best during a time like this can tell a lot about what teams really want a player, and that sticks with guys.
So a lot of parents are going to be seeing their kids' phone ring a lot more often now.
Yeah.
If they're out of school, what's holding them back?
Brutal. All right.
Yeah, if you go down the road too, does it impact kids when the camping season starts?
Sure.
And that's not that far removed.
And that's what we've got to figure out about when this resumes is summer camp season. That's a critical time for visits. For a school like Tennessee, that's your chance to get guys on campus from Florida, Louisiana, the North. So you've got to get guys there in the summer. If you can't do that, that's where things really start getting affected.
And recruiting is such a deal where you're looking at kids this year ahead, 2 years ahead, 3 years ahead. Seems like this could be creating a backlog and slowing some of that process down. If you're having a harder time getting face-to-face with somebody you're trying to recruit for this year, doesn't that just back it up for guys in future classes?
It certainly could, and the spring evaluation period. That's the next thing that would be impacted. It's supposed to start April 15th. It runs through March 31st or May 31st. If coaches aren't able to go out to schools, see spring practices, that's a critical evaluation period, really the last chance for coaches to get out there and see guys in high school practices and games until September. So if that doesn't happen, that's where, the evaluation process gets set back for not only this class, but future classes.
Okay, very good. When we come back, what are coaches, head coaches and assistants dealing with right now? We'll ask Mark Pankratz. He's been an assistant coach. We'll talk to him about what those guys are going through at the moment. We got a lot more to come in this show. Stick with us here on the Sports Source.